This is Josh Friedman reporting to you from Istanbul, Turkey. Today is June 23, 2019, and it is a bit of a surprise election day here in Istanbul. Going back to the end of March, on March 31st, local elections took place across Turkey. Those elections came and went. However, the Istanbul election is being repeated. So on March 31st, there was a very close contest between Binali Yildirim of the ruling Justice and Development Party, the AKP, and Ekrem İmamoğlu of the CHP, or CHP, Turkey's main opposition party. İmamoğlu narrowly defeated Yildirim. It was somewhere around 48.8% to 48.6%. It was very, very close. And then afterward, the AKP, led by none other than Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, appealed the results. Erdogan was saying that the results were fraudulent, that there was organized crime involved. The AKP appealed the results to Turkey's high election body, which then annulled the results. A couple weeks after the election, or a few weeks after the election, the AKP appealed. A couple weeks later, the results were annulled on the grounds that there were officials involved in the ballot counting process who were not legitimate public servants and should not have been. Those were the grounds on which the election results were annulled. The opposition and many critics of Erdogan and the ruling party have cried foul, but they're going forward with this rerun election. So who are these candidates that are battling out to become mayor of Istanbul, and why is this such a significant vote? And I'll start with the latter. So it's been said, in fact, by none other than Erdogan himself, that basically he who controls Istanbul controls Turkey. Istanbul isn't the capital of Turkey, but it is the economic capital, and it's the largest and most recognizable city in Turkey. Behind me is, for that matter, is both Europe and Asia. It's where East meets West. It's a crucial city in all respects, but politically within Turkey it is certainly crucial. And the AKP has controlled Istanbul for the past quarter century, dating back actually to, I believe, 1994, when none other than Erdogan himself became mayor of Istanbul. Erdogan rose up the ranks of Turkish politics through Istanbul. Control of Istanbul is a deeply personal issue to him, in addition to it being a major swing, or for it being very emblematic of what the direction of politics is going in Turkey. So Erdogan has been in power nationally for more than 15 years now. Turkey under Erdogan has changed, and Erdogan has continued to win election after election after election, repeating as prime minister, moving on to president as the Istanbul metro passes by. So Erdogan has seemingly had a very strong grip on almost all levels of power in Turkey. However, the tides now may be changing in the other direction. İmamoğlu is very much an upstart candidate. He rose from basically obscurity a few weeks ago, or a few months ago, to narrowly win the Istanbul mayoral election. Before that, İmamoğlu was the mayor of a small suburban district of Istanbul. He's, like I said, a member of the main opposition CHP, and İmamoğlu he's considered a figure who has kind of widespread appeal, in that, unlike his party, or a lot of people in his party, he's known to be a religious man. So he appeals to some of the conservatives who might otherwise be voting for Erdogan or Erdogan's party or Erdogan's candidates. And at the same time, he's widely revered by the CHP, the CHP, and most of their supporters. In fact, part of today's vote is going to hinge not so much on the two main parties, but quite possibly on the Kurdish vote. There's the pro-Kurdish party, the HDP, and in the past they have swung one or two elections, and if the Kurdish vote and the HDP vote goes toward İmamoğlu, which is a possibility, as basically a protest vote against Erdogan and against the AKP, then that could easily swing things in İmamoğlu's favor. On the other hand, perchance there are many Kurds and HDP supporters who abstain because they don't really have a man in the race. There are different directions that the Kurdish vote could go, and it could very well swing the election. Yildirim is the former prime minister of Turkey. He was Turkey's last prime minister. For that matter, who knows, might be the last prime minister in the history of Turkey. That's because a couple years back, Erdogan succeeded via a national referendum, getting Turkey to transform its system of governance from a parliamentary system to an executive presidential system. And at the time, Yildirim was the prime minister. Now Turkey no longer has a prime minister. Turkey is led by the executive president, who is Erdogan. Erdogan was campaigning hard for Yildirim in the first version of this election. Hasn't been so much the case in the redo campaign, but he has come out rather in recent days and is clearly supporting Yildirim. And there's a lot of political will, maybe will's not the right word, but political institutions could arguably be backing Yildirim in this case, in this election. There are a lot of concerns among the opposition and among critics of Erdogan that Turkey's democracy is, if not outright going away, which is an allegation that gets thrown around a lot, that the institutions have been taken over by Erdogan and the AKP. So there are a lot of people making the claim that this election isn't a free and fair election. There are people raising concerns that the ballots, the counting of the ballots could be rigged. For that matter, in either direction. Both sides have floated those kinds of allegations. There was allegations against alleged CHP vote rigging that ended up getting the results annulled to begin with. But there are a lot of people who are concerned that because Erdogan has basically forced this redo election to take place, that maybe Ekrem İmamoğlu is not going to get a fair vote count. We shall see. The polls are going to close at around, actually I believe they close at 5 p.m. and the results could come in very quickly. Typically with Turkish elections, the results come out later in the evening or the night, but there is only one vote going on right now, the Istanbul mayoral election. So potentially we could get a result, a definitive result tonight. Potentially we're not going to get a definitive result for days or weeks, because who knows what could happen. The election could be contested again. It could be very, very close, and because of that it might take a while to get a definitive result. It's very much up in the air at this point, but I will be reporting back to you tonight, potentially doing a live stream. We shall see. I'm not positive of that, and I will probably be reporting to you from the Taksim Square area, where I presume there will be celebrations regardless of what the result is, or regardless of what appears to be the result. Maybe there'll be protests. It's really up in the air, like I was saying. I plan to stick around in Istanbul for at least the next couple days. So if there's action in the aftermath of the election, I plan on bringing it to you. If you have any requests with regard to my coverage of this election, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Other than that, from the beautiful Golden Horn here in Istanbul, I'm calling it a wrap on election day, and I will be reporting back to you on election night. See you then.